Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sanderlanche podcast. This week, we are covering Mistborn, The Well of Ascension, chapters 5, 6, and 7, wherein Vin gets a new pet, sort of. Vin and Ham have a fight, sort of. And Sazed meets up with an old friend who has spikes through his eyes. So, I'm Data. With me, as usual, is...
Jack.
Jaymee.
They call me Mr. Tibbs. No, it's just Joe.
Joe Tibbs.
Okay, everybody, hold on to something. The Sanderlanche is about to begin.
Elders, tellers, keepers of the bottom, treasures of the dirt. Russian string, we swivel and sing and dig for the annals of the earth. And we try to keep a little beauty in the world. All that died, we keep it in our hands.
Yeah, so we got some not super like action-y chapters exactly, but some interesting stuff happening. What did you guys think of these 3 chapters?
That poor dog.
That's it.
I mean, yeah, there was a bit going on. It was good to see some of the band coming back together. We get to see clubs. We get to see Spook. We get to see Spook talking normally.
He does, yeah.
And Marsh supposedly shows up. That was deeply confusing, that bit. I just spent a lot of time feeling bad first for the dog and then for Sazed. I'm like, the dog because of what happened to it, and then Sazed because he's just like, oh, things are better now, so now like things will go the way I've always planned them to, and then he realizes no one actually cares about what he cares about. I'm like, oh man, I've been there. I feel bad for you.
It's funny you say that about the dog, because the very first thing in the annotations on this chapter is one of my writing groups had an intense reaction against Vin killing the dog in this scene. I'm not sure still why they got so upset, but they really didn't like it that she killed a dog, quote unquote, in cold blood. So her, I'm sorry about this, in her head is there for them. At least now they know she kind of wishes she didn't have to do it. The dog had it coming, though. He says...
It took me a minute with the dog. I was like, oh, weird alpha move, Vin. Like, just teaching this dog who's boss. And then she was like, oh, okay, here's your new body. And I was like, oh, no.
So
I see what you did there.
You think she really just wanted a pet dog and we weren't getting any of the background on it when she started?
Yeah, kind of.
She was
I was like, go for the cute puppy.
Like she names it Reen. Well, like specifically this one, a big ugly bully of a pet.
Well, she could do that. I don't think I was on the same wavelength of what she was doing. But it makes sense, for everyone except the kandra.
Yeah, he wasn't happy.
Yeah, good chapters again. A lot, just lots of little things. It was nice to see everyone sort of coming back. We still don't know what's going on with Breeze, where he's run off to. Really exciting to get to the end of the chapters and have Marsh come in and sort of confirm that, yep, the mists are here in the daytime. So I was sort of thinking, yep, there's not really a lot happening here, but just that nice little hook for what's coming next. So, yeah.
Yeah, these chapters were kind of deep in some mystery, especially near the end. I honestly didn't know what Vin was buying that dog for. And then when she punched it, I'm saying with Jaymee, I was like, I didn't realize that was the dog dying. And then I thought she just like knocked it out and she was going to take it to do something with it. And then I was like, whoa, wait, I guess that dog's dead. Okay. But other than that, I think the most interesting thing to me about these chapters was definitely the end with Sazed and Marsh, which we'll get into. But I'm excited to see where the new mysteries are taking us.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to look now because I felt like that wasn't her killing the dog either. And then I'm like, well, do we see later that she does kill the dog? Of course, the contract said that the contract says it can't be required. She can't make it kill a person. So maybe she can tell it. It's like, oh, you have to kill that dog and eat it.
And that's kind of what I was thinking. Either way, it's kind of vicious on Vin's part because it's like she's either killing it herself or she's letting the kandra kill it. One or the other.
Okay. Yeah, people Everyone feels bad for the dog. Apparently, the dog deserves it, according to Brandon. So he was a rude dog, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you can tell there's like indecision in her eyes when he brings the first dog over, because she looks into its eyes and it looks all happy, and she's like, no, I can't do it to this dog.
I thought she just wanted a really big dog so that her kandra would be a big dog. So she's like, no, I don't want your little puppy. That's not what I'm going for here.
It's like, no, the last thing we need is to kill the cute little puppy and have John Wick on my ass.
You can't kill a puppy. That's no.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess let's get into these chapters and the dog murder that's to come here. Really, the epigraph on this first one is he's just like, yep, I'm the one who betrayed Alendi. I know now that he must never be allowed to complete his quest. Ooh. Bum, bum, bum.
So what? He said, hey, Rashek, do me a solid, will you? Here's $50.
Maybe. we don't know. If he knows Rashek, it totally... that would have worked out really well for Rashek in the end, I guess. He was the Lord Ruler for 1,000 years, so...
Yeah.
That $50 went a long way. Okay, so we get Vin walking through the marketplace, which is now like this really bustling. The Ska have money now, so they have money to spend. So there's lots of people selling stuff, and even the urchins seem happier as they go around trying to like pickpockets and things. We get some more talk about she's still trying to figure out her place. She's like, "Am I a noble woman? You know, I was trained by the survivor of Hathsin, and my mom was a crazy Ska who gave me this earring and killed my sister." Basically the same old Vin stuff. She's always like, man, my life's been weird.
I think it was in this part. So she says for the first time killed her full sister, and then talks about Reen as her half brother. Was this the first time we'd spoken about Reen being a half brother? Like in the text?
That's actually a good question. I don't remember if it's mentioned in the first book. Oh, she does. I just searched the Final Empire, and in one of the very early chapters, she says, "I was raised by my half brother Reen."
Okay.
So, but then I'm trying to remember in the Final Empire, does he point out to Vidian and say that's your dad, or does he point out to Vidian and say that's our dad?
No, she says that Reen told her that was her dad. We had some talk about whether or not it was also Reen's dad, but I don't think it's ever made explicit where Reen's like, that's your dad, not my dad. But she doesn't say it as in Reen said that was our dad. She says that Reen said that was her dad. Whether or not it was his, I don't think we get into.
Right. Yeah. So again, I guess if that's her full sister and Tavidian really was her dad, that goes back to my other point. Like, I could understand maybe Tavidian not knowing about one child, but not knowing about two, that just doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, he did know about children because the Lord Ruler was like, did she bear children? And he said yes. What he didn't know was that the woman was a Ska at first. And so when he found out she was a Ska, then he went and had them killed. Probably, if she'd been a noble-woman, then, he wouldn't mind having some illegitimate children around that might turn out to be powerful allomancers. Just like Kelsier and Marsh were raised as like illegitimate but noble children until the guy found out about their mom.
Yep. I think we're just looking for a Days of Our Lives mystery in there.
We still want the Lord Ruler to be shacking up with Vin's mom somehow.
Yep.
Never mind.
On the topic, do we know how much, like the younger sister who died, how much older was Vin than her? Has that been confirmed at any point?
I feel like they made it sound like in the first book she was a baby, but hold on, let me see if there's any details about
that. I think they definitely said she was a baby, but they never said how old Vin was at the time. I don't think.
Yeah, she says she killed my baby sister, so definitely it was a baby.
Because depending on how big the age gap is between Vin and the sister, that would also sound like, Tavidian, what were you doing? How long did you not know this woman was a Ska?
Yeah, it seems like some women are really slick and get away with it for a long time. Because, like Kelsier and Marsh were raised, I guess, most of their childhood as, like, noble.
Yeah. Well, if she wants, like, noble children, it's possible that she, got pregnant with Vin, hid for 9 months, and then came back to see him again, and then they were on and off for a long time or something.
It's possible, I guess. Yeah. Anyway.
Oh, I bet I can figure it out from this Wikipedia, because it tells the year that Vin's sister died. And so if it says the year Vin was born, that would give us...
Oh, yeah.
See, we're diving deep now. So she was 5, according to this, when her sister died.
Okay.
Which that about fits.
Seems right.
That's the kind of age where you're
old
like,
enough
I barely
to remember.
Yeah. Okay. Back to the book that we're actually reading. Sorry.
Sorry for the detour.
Sorry, guy. Back to the part about the bronze earring is the only memento of her mother. Her half brother did this thing. Sometimes she feels like a nobleman, sometimes not. A noble woman, rather. Sometimes you feel like a nut. Sometimes you don't. She looks at the ball gown shop, and she's like, oh man, ball gowns. I remember those. Not really useful right now, though. And then we get to the part where there's a guy tailing her. Very badly. So what do you guys think of how this goes? And she has a new title. She is Lady Air.
Yeah, it was awkward, right? I mean, when it said in the book that he was tailing her but very poorly, I was like, okay, well, this guy wants her to notice him, I guess. And then when more people started following her, I was like, oh no. And then it was just like, yep, they worship her because she killed the Lord Ruler, and now they want her to be whatever, the new god. I don't know. It's awkward.
She has her own cult.
Yeah.
I guess it's no surprise, though, that that's how some people react, to go from putting your faith into something so for such a long time, like the Lord Ruler, and then to have that taken away. It's like, well, that's what I believed in for the longest time. Where are you going to put all of that faith and energy? And so it kind of makes sense that there would be a sect like this. Rough for Vin, though. I just picture, Life of Brian, and Brian's running around and trying to get away, and they're all like, give him your shoe. That's kind of what I saw here. Poor Vin.
Yeah, for somebody who doesn't like attention, it's definitely the opposite of what is good.
Super uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I mean, it's Kelsier's fault, as she kind of mentions. It's like this was kind of his intention, was to build his legacy up to a point where people thought he was unkillable and unstoppable, and so that he could turn himself into a movement or a religion. And that's what's happened now. There's a religion around the events that happened when the Lord Ruler fell. So
yeah, I mean, it was the belief in Kelsier and this like religious kind of fervor that led them to overthrow the Lord Ruler in the first place. So it kind of makes sense that there would be a religion coming out of that. And Vin is not comfortable with her place in that religion, which who would be, really?
Mm.
From the end of the last book, Vin didn't want to be that. She was like, please don't record that.
Nope. Yep.
I don't want to be that person that everyone believes in and comes to, and this is not what she wanted at all, and she got it anyway.
Yeah, I don't think that any of us thought she was going to be successful in hiding the fact that she was the one who did this.
No.
Yeah.
It sort of lends credence to the whole, the Mistborn keep have always kept their identities secret, even when the Final Empire was still in swing. Like all the various Mistborn in the houses, no one knew who each of them were. And it seems like this is just that taken to its logical extreme. Like we've seen how the Scar respond to people with full-on Mistborn powers. Like look at how Yedden responded when Kelsier did his little demonstration. Now that the Scar know that not only is there a Mistborn, but she fought for them and she liberated them from the Tyrant King. And of course, they're going to start worshipping her as though because she can do all these incredible things that they just see as far above them. They see her as something other. And it's like, you should have done the Mistborn thing, kept your identity secret there, girl.
I didn't even thought of that. That's a good point, is that she has crazy magical powers. So in addition to having been the one who killed the Lord Ruler, it's like also she's magic. So
yeah.
I was trying to think who on the team would be comfortable with all of a sudden being, like a religious figure. And I was like, maybe Breeze. Breeze would be like, yeah, I am pretty great.
That was the
You're
joke
right.
I was going to make. Oh, well.
But yeah, these people, they want Vin touching their babies, and they're like, the priests say that you'll stop the army and that the soldiers won't be able to enter the city while you're here. And she's just like, okay, I'm gonna go now. So I get it, but I'm like, come on, Vin, just give him a little hope.
Well, that was it. She was wondering about what's my place in like the new world order at the moment, and then this happened. She's like, "Oh God, is this my place in the new world order?"
It's like, I don't want that place. I want the place that's quiet and nobody pays attention to me. And then she goes to buy a puppy from the puppy merchant. I don't know if he has other kinds of animals or if he strictly deals in puppies, but so we know there's dogs in this world. I don't know if we knew that already, actually. And she's looking for a wolfhound. I don't know if any of you guys have read the Iron Druid Chronicles, but there's a wolfhound who's the main character in that, and those dogs are giant, like really enormous.
I have read that one. He was the best character.
Oh yeah, the dog is the best character, obviously.
Yep.
And so she's like, I want a wolfhound. And he tries to bring her like some cute. She's like, no. Here, I'm gonna go over here, and I want this one in the back. How much? And the guy's like, no. That's like a super ferocious monster dog that you let loose on the grounds at night to kill anyone who comes in. And she's like, good. That's exactly the kind of animal I want. And so apparently this guy doesn't know who she is, or he wouldn't be like, no, come on, don't you want a puppy? That is way too big for you. Maybe she should have brought her entourage of like hangers on.
Yeah.
Could have gotten a discount. You don't know.
I don't think money's really an issue for her anymore.
Well, I think she talks about it in this chapter, actually, is that it's like spending, like, it's different from when she was spending the crew's money. Now she's spending Ellen's money, which is the people's money, basically. And she wasn't like terribly comfortable about that. I don't know how much dogs cost, but
yeah, she's got her entourage there, and she's like, all right, watch your taxpayer dollars at work here, boys.
The way it describes it, she punches him in the side of the head, and he wobbles and falls unconscious. So it doesn't sound like she's murdering the dog right there.
Well, not right there, but, you know.
Actually, yeah, like looking at the next paragraph, it says, like, she gets in, goes to Orosura, and slams the unconscious wolfhound to the floor. So it sounds like the dog had to, like, Orosura had to kill the dog.
I wonder if he kills it first, or if he like just starts eating it, and at some point it dies. Like that's kind of horrifying, actually.
Oh God.
Yeah. I almost wish she had just killed the dog with her fist instead. You know what I mean? Like, it just sounds horrible.
No, that's not good, yeah.
Because, I mean, you know, what's worse, shooting a dog and putting it out of its misery, or taking it to the pound and letting them put it down? Like, they're both bad.
I have no idea how painful it is when they put them down. I think it's supposed to not be super painful, but they say that about execution of humans, too, and apparently that doesn't work as well as it's supposed to, so who knows. I do like that she gets up to her rooms and Orosura is just like in his mangled body, just kind of lying there. And he'd made it back to the rooms at some point during the night.
Like, what do the guards think of that? Like, do any of them spot this mangled half-human sort of form crawling in through the window? Just going, oh God, it's happening again.
That's a really good point. Like she mentions that I guess he's seen as her steward, and she's like, it'll look weird if I just keep changing stewards. So I've been telling people I was thinking about dismissing you for a while. So do they think that like her steward is just like crawling down the hall like, ow, ow, ow?
It's like, I fired him. Was that before or after you broke all his bones?
Yeah. He made a move on me, so couldn't let that stand.
Mm.
And Orosura is not happy about this dog body. And he's like, this is I don't like this. You're going to have to order me by the contract to do this if you really want me to do it. And she's like, okay, you're commanded. Now, how long is it going to take?
Yeah, this is really just not... The more I read of Orosura, the more I'm just like, the second, like, your contract is going to run out at some point in this book in some way, and as soon as it does, you're going to turn on Vin for everything she's done.
Yeah, he continues to
definitely
seem
not
like not a
friendly.
big fan. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to blame him on some level because Vin is not nice to him. But and then we find out that there's a little package and a letter waiting for her, which is just like another wrinkle in their relationship where she's like, why didn't you tell me this package came for me? You know how much I'm waiting for this. And he's like, oh, well, you didn't command me to tell you if any packages arrived.
Mm-hmm.
At which point it's like, dude, just come on. But she has been working with this metallurgist to find whatever the alloy of aluminum is. And I don't know. Did we talk about it last time? What aluminum did?
I think that came up in this chapter or in the next one.
Yeah. I don't remember if it was mentioned at the time or if I told you guys at the time. that like when they made her swallow a metal and it got rid of all of her other metals, that was aluminum. But yeah, that's what that was. And so she's like, we know this one. There's got to be an alloy to it. We know that's how it works. So we're looking to find out what it is. And we find out in a little bit that this guy's like, yeah, there's about 40 different alloys that we could try. And she's just going one at a time, trying them out. And we see Dox. Dox and Ellen are hanging out and trying real hard to get along. Like, they're being overly nice to each other because they don't like each other, which is kind of sad. Because we love Doxson. And we're okay with Ellen, right?
Well, I feel like Ellen doesn't really have a problem with Doxson except for the problem that Dox has with him.
That is kind of the way it comes across, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I guess shouldn't be a shock. We knew for a long time that Doxson was on the all noblemen deserve to die train.
Yeah. I don't know, like when he first met Ellen back in the last book, like it seemed like, you know, they were just like, I recognize that we could be on the same side here, and it seemed like, but maybe that was just because the battle was going down, they didn't have time to argue back and forth. Now that they've had that time, they're just like, yes, I really don't like you.
I don't think Doxson liked him a whole lot from the beginning. He's just like, man, this guy's difficult to have a conversation with. They're like in the middle of talking, and Ellen got distracted by something shiny.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, then Vin and Ellen have a conversation about how they don't really get along, but they're trying. And he's like, is that a new perfume? Which is this is a hilarious interaction after the discussion we just had about the perfumes. I don't think
at least he's taking notice that she smells different.
Yeah. And that was his whole thing in that previous chapter, was like, she gets upset if I don't notice when she's trying out a new perfume.
Try to be nice, even though it's probably horrible.
Yeah, he's like, I was worried that you departed from your senses. Oh yeah, I wonder how if that was actually a perfume, how he would have handled that. Where she's like, oh yeah, this is a new perfume. What do you think? And he's like, it's different.
It's like there's no right answer here, mate.
No. Oh goodness. And then he's like, actually, I'm a little bit disappointed that you're not wearing dog-scented perfume. With your social station, it might become a new trend.
Yes, latest fashion, wet dog smell.
I mean, yeah, you know, if the heir to the survivor is wearing this new thing, then everyone might be on board. Depending on who you
stand out.
Yeah. And then Ellen has a discussion about how it's much better for him if people can't tell when he's being an idiot and when he's being a genius. Oh, Ellen, you're still not real good at this, I feel like, but you're trying. You sure are trying.
Yeah. And
Ellen is wondering if the dog kandra will be able to keep up with her at night. And she's like, I don't really want to take him. He doesn't really like me. Which I can understand Vin's thing. She's like, I don't necessarily want him with me, but... And we get down to, once again, she's like, he ate Kelsier. Which I'm with Ellen, just like, you gotta get over that, kid. Like, Kelsier hired the guy to eat him. You can't blame Orsor, really.
Yeah, I mean, that's what he does. That is, like, the type of creature that he is, that is the thing that he does. Mm-hmm. So...
She says she didn't get along with him well, even when he was Renu and she was Valette. Which, yeah, I mean, I feel like they didn't get along badly. They just weren't buddies.
I mean, like, he just played the part and didn't do much else. Like, he was just the distracted uncle figure. That was kind of his role.
I feel like I would have mixed feelings, though, if someone that I cared for had been eaten by the bone blob thing. Like, I would be a little apprehensive around him as well.
Yeah. When you put it like that, getting eaten by a bone blob thing, yeah, okay.
But again, like, Kelsier told him to. Yeah. I don't know. I think it stems from more, like, yeah, she just resents the fact that was a part of the plan that she finds gross and she didn't know about it. So she has issues with that and she blames Orisur for it, but she's not blaming Kelsier for his role in that, which I think is a bit unfair. So I feel like Orisur is just taking the brunt of it, and that's just feeding his own resentment because he's just like, you're having a go at me for doing what I was told to do on the contract. Like, screw you, lady.
I feel like to give him a dog's body, though, and then just be like, oh, you're not going to hang out with me. I just need you out of the way, and you can be a dog this time. Like, that's pretty poor.
Yeah. It's like, she gave a really good explanation to him, where it's like, hey, you'll be my dog, and people won't notice you, and that'll make you even better at this job, and you can hang around with me, and people won't think it's strange. Which, that made a lot of sense, to me at least.
Yeah.
But then, to turn around and beat Ellen, it's like, yeah, he's going to be a dog, but I'm going to leave him behind and not have him hang out with me. It's like, okay, well, come on.
What was the point?
Yeah, you could have let him take one of those dead guys if you weren't going to take him along in the first place.
On some level, I'm convinced it was just Brandon Sanderson trying to make like a really bad stealth pun and like making him into a literal dog's body.
I hadn't considered that. Of course, dog's body is not a common term here, but and I want to point out that this is the inside joke that I mentioned in the last episode that somebody had emailed about. Was we were talking in the final episode about the Final Empire about what was going to happen with Orsur, and I was like, Vin doesn't really seem to want him around, and Dak was like, I don't think that she's going to get a choice, like he's going to stick with her, and I was like, oh, so is he going to like follow her around like a puppy?
Oh boy.
So yes, that's the joke that you guys didn't get to be in on. Now you're in on it. It's super, super funny.
Yay.
But speaking of Kelsier, we get this whole discussion where Elend is feeling inferior because he's like, everyone really wants Kelsier to be like in my position, basically. Doxson, in particular, he's like, that's what he dislikes most about me is I'm not Kelsier, basically. Which is probably kind of fair. Kelsier was the hero of the city, the guy who gave his life to start all this, and he's the one that everyone loved. Elend probably would not be king if Kelsier was alive. Elend might not be alive if Kelsier was alive, because he didn't like noblemen a whole lot. He saved Elend, though, so... And they have that discussion in this chapter, too. And there's the discussion about why Vin didn't, like Kelsier in that way, which we talked about a little last time, because Brandon said that was something that his alpha readers or whatever felt like there should be a relationship there. But she has very convincing reasons here for why that was not something she was into.
Yeah, plus, I mean, besides all the reasons she says, it would just kind of be icky.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's her first thing, is like, he was way older than me, which is a big part of that ickiness. It's like, ew. Like, she was 16 and he was 38.
I guess that's the thing, you always forget the way Kelsier acted. He comes across as a bit more of a young man than he actually was.
Yeah, you're right. I never thought of him as somebody like who was almost 40 in the way he acted.
Yeah.
Well, we have to remember he had like a whole career before becoming a Mistborn, and I mean, I don't feel like you become a legend in just a few years if in the thieving world. Like, I'm sure it took many years for him to establish himself in Luthadel, and then he goes away. And also, I mean, I always tried to. They're friends. They're like best friends, so I always just assumed he was close in age to Doxson, and Doxson seemed older, so I was like, well, he probably just looks young. Or he's the handsome rogue type, so he looks young even though he's older.
That's a good point. It makes sense for him to be around Doxson's age. And in the short story we read, he's like, yeah, when Doxson was younger, he was kind of a brawler. So even that almost makes it sound like, Doxson's getting a little on in years. Probably especially for a Ska. I don't feel like Ska probably lived to be that old usually.
What was it? He spent a year at the pits before he snapped. Then there was 3 years between escaping the pits and coming back to Luthadel for the start of the Final Empire. So he would have been like probably the end of his early 30s when he was arrested. So presumably he spent the entirety of his 20s like as this thieving crew leader, building up a reputation. Like a decade to be a successful thief in Luthadel. That's nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, no. That makes a lot of sense. Him and Mare coming up in their 20s. Then Doxson. That could be an interesting series of books, actually, is them pulling scams. It's like this young crew.
Butch and Sundance, the early years.
Well, Doxson's not dead, so...
Sorry, Bill and Ted reference there.
I guess if Mare was Butch and Kelsier was Sundance, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Ellen tells the story of how Kelsier saved his life, and Vin's like, oh, well, that's nice. It's like, he knew I loved you. I guess in the end that proved stronger than his hatred. Ham shows up. interrupting their little discussion while they're like, they're laying together, cuddling on the couch or whatever. It's very cute. And this is where they start talking about the alloy of aluminum and how she's been working on figuring out what that is. And she has this new one to try out. And apparently she's burned a few of these so far, and they make her very, very sick, which is what Kelsier said would happen if you get, the wrong percentages in an alloy.
I guess it's also, we know what aluminium does, but like, what is she expecting to happen when she burns this alloy? Because I think when it came up in the Final Empire, we talked about it, and Joe was saying something like, maybe it'll enhance the reserves that you already have in your stomach. So
yeah. Which this one doesn't make her sick, but it doesn't seemingly do anything else that she can notice either. So.
Yeah, not that she notices.
But did she, I'm trying to skip through here. Does she have any other reserves in her at the time? Because if she doesn't, and that is, we hypothesize that's what this alloy is meant to do, then of course she's not going to notice anything because she's nothing there to enhance.
She did have all 8 metal reserves in there, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
yes,
I think it describes
does.
that she can feel each of them. And then she reaches for this new one, but she doesn't feel like, and she knows it's burning, and she knows she's not sick, but it's not doing anything.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there it is. The other 8 were all there, well stocked.
So what do you guys think this is going to be about with Duralumin? Like, is this the right one? And if so, what is it going to do?
Well, it says that she could feel all the other ones, but maybe she needs to actually burn one of the other ones to feel it. My only thought was if it works the opposite way from aluminum, was if it doesn't give you more of the other metals, perhaps it makes them last longer when you burn them.
So you would definitely need to burn another one to sense that.
Right.
You might need to burn one for a while to sense that.
Right. Exactly. Like you'd have to burn it in conjunction while burning that one to sense kind of what's happening.
I wonder if she would think of that. Like, while you're burning something else, just be like, well, let's give this one a try.
I had sort of thought I think it's the next chapter, when Vin and Ham are sparring with each other, and when she sort of jumps really high, I was like, maybe it is enhancing that. I mean, she was given the instruction to only use pewter, which at first I was like, well, that makes sense. They're fighting. It's sort of equal that way. But maybe she can just stretch things a little bit further than she would have been able to.
So you think she was cheating and trying to burn the new thing while she in the fight, or it was like a leftover effect from when she burns it now? Possibly
a leftover effect. I don't think she would have been cheating, but yeah, like if that's sort of the effect that it had, maybe she hasn't figured that out yet.
Okay. I was going to dip into the annotations again for a second, because he talks about this. If you paid any sort of attention during the last book, you were probably expecting a new metal or two to show up. I dropped a lot of hints that there were other metals. It was a little bit of a stretch to let there be metals that, despite the 1,000-year history of Allomancy, weren't known. However, I rely on the fact that the Lord Ruler had informational control over society, and there are a lot of things that he knew that aren't known to a lot of other people. He also says that Duralumin is a real alloy from our world, commonly made from aluminum, and actually a lot of things that we call aluminum, particularly industrial aluminum, is actually Duralumin. And he says that before electrolysis, aluminum was actually really tough to get. It said that Napoleon had a set of aluminum plates that were more valuable than his gold or platinum ones. So I guess that's the explanation for why aluminum is so rare in this world, and why maybe nobody had tried that one before and realized that it had this power.
Now we got it coming out of our ears.
It's true. We can electrolytes. No, that's a different thing.
Gatorade! This podcast not sponsored by Gatorade.
I like that she brings up that there were 40 different alloys and that this is only the 5th one that she's tried. I was like, well, that is lucky, given how sick this thing apparently makes you if you get the wrong one. And Ham's like, hey, I wanted to see if you wanted to go and spar. And she's like, all right, let's do this thing. And they're trying to convince Elend to do some weapons training. And he's like, no, I'm good. I don't need to fight. It's fine. Vin says, you really should practice more, Ellen. You barely know how to hold a sword, and you're terrible with the dueling cane. She loves this guy. She's not pulling any punches. She's like, you barely know which end of the sword to hold. So come on.
I mean, he's getting targeted by assassination attempts twice a week or something, so it probably makes sense the guy should learn how to friggin' defend himself.
Right?
You think so?
I mean, if he could hold off an assassin for even like 5 seconds, that might give Vin more time to get there and save him. Come on. Let's... this guy, Ellen, it's just it's more of him being oblivious. He's like, it's not that big a deal.
He really is the worst. He's just
worse than Spook.
Oh, I was going to say, you say that
no.
now, but then he comes back this chapter.
No. It's clear that the men who like Vin are just terrible, both of them. One more than the other.
Okay. And then we get the next epigraph, which I think confirms... We talked about it in the first epigraph where he's like, I write this in metal or something, and we're talking about what exactly that meant. And so he says, I write this record now, pounding it into a metal slab, because I am afraid for myself. Yes, because he's like, when Alendi does come back, or if he does come back, he's going to want to kill me first, because I'm like the last guy left that's against him. He's not an evil man, but he is a ruthless one. That is, I think, a product of what he has been through. So and we talked about that last time too, as we were reading the logbook before we even knew who this guy was. That was Dak's thing, I think, was that Quan has turned against him, and he's like, well, maybe he's seen that this guy's going around killing people, and yeah, maybe it's for a good reason or whatever, but he talks about killing friends and stuff, that it has to be done. And that's kind of what Quan is saying here. He's like, he's not a bad guy, but he's a ruthless guy.
Yeah, I guess it just points out the fact that throughout Alendi's logbook, we never really got specifics of what he himself did. He talked obliquely about having to kill people and do horrible things, and he felt bad for it, but he never actually said specifically what they were. So...
it's true.
Yeah, so we might actually get some more details out of Quan. Jaymee and I were also talking about the fact that Quan is the one writing these, and he's pounding them into metal. And we sort of came up with, like, I wonder why he's, like, before we read this epigraph, we were like, why is Quan, like, not writing on paper? He said he doesn't trust it. Does he not trust paper because he still thinks that trees can think, and maybe the paper's made of wood, so...
I hadn't thought of that. That is a great... The trees are plotting, and the paper is helping.
Oh, man. I mean, I just assumed it was because he was a terraceman, and he was recording it on metal mines or whatever, but I like that better.
He's worried
He says
the
here
trees
he's
have a
pounding
hive
it
mind.
into a slab. So it's not a metal mine sort of thing. He's pounding this record into a slab of metal, he says.
He's still gearing up for that whole when trees attack thing.
Yeah, he's getting ready for the happening. It's going to happen, the happening.
Thanks, Spook.
But wuzzing with the happening.
Oh, crap.
But I like random note here, because it's something that you pick up about Sazed and the way that Sazed talks. He uses this, he says, I think, a lot. And it's kind of like, I've always felt like a non-confrontational thing. And maybe we discussed this before. I don't recall. But Sazed will say a thing, and then he'll be like, at the end, comma, I think. He doesn't want to make statements that are provocative, so he appends them with that to be like, oh, this is just my opinion, though. And then not Rashek, Quan does the same thing here in his last sentence. He's like, that is, I think, a product of what he's been through. So it's kind of like a terraceman affectation.
Yeah, as a guy who people get upset with when I come off like I know too much, that does not help saying I think. People still get annoyed with you.
Well, could you imagine, like, at the Well of Ascension, Rashek stabs Alendi through the back, and he's like, you need to die, I think.
Yeah, now that would be good.
That takes some of the sting out of the stabbing.
Yeah, now that's
you just think. Okay, that's fine then. Statement of fact. It's an opinion. I can respect that. Okay. Okay. Then we move into we're gonna watch the sparring, but Elend has his internal dialogue about I could train for 10 years and not be matched for an Allomancer, and that's who they're going to send to kill me, so what's the point, really, in learning any of this? Which just sounds like an excuse to me to be lazy and not learn. And so, yes, it's just going to be a pewter sparring match between him and Vin, which on the surface, you feel like if Vin's not allowed to use any of her other metals to give her an advantage, then Ham's a bigger, stronger guy than her. Seems like he should have an advantage.
There's this thing here, from what you said earlier. Ellen is like, I could train 10 years and be no match for an Allomancer. And then a couple of paragraphs later, Ham is just like, there is no substitute for training and practice, no matter how powerful the Allomancer is.
Mm-hmm.
Take that, Ellen.
Well, it makes a lot of sense, right? He's like, if two guys are using pewter, then they're equal in strength, so the one with more skill is going to win.
Yeah.
But Ellen doesn't want to hear that.
No.
That would mean that he'd have to train and stuff. That's hard.
Yeah, he thinks the guy with the thicker books should win.
Well, I mean, yeah, they probably work as a shield.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And then the tree's attacked.
Yeah, that makes me think of Carl Weathers when he's got the Beskar in his chest so he doesn't die.
I was thinking Flanders when he gets shot. He's like, good thing I always keep a Bible close to my heart.
Okay, so they're going to start sparring with staves, and Clubs clomps up, and he's like, my money's on the girl, and puts down a 10 boxing coin to bet on Vin. And Elend, he kind of likes Clubs, but he's also like intimidated by Clubs, which kind of makes sense. You know, he's this gruff, gnarled, like old dude who's apparently a really good general, according to Elend. He's impressed by how like good he is at this. And so he's kind of scared not to take the bet. He's like, you're asking me to bet against Vin, you know, that could be unhealthy. And Clubs is like, and?
I love the description of Clubs' face like a gnarled toadstool.
Yep.
That is the best description ever.
I think it still fits like Mad Eye Moody to me. Ever since you guys said that in the previous book, that's all I can see now is like Clubs is Mad Eye Moody.
Yep. And when making the movie, please cast Brendan Gleeson.
I'm sure he won't mind playing the exact same thing again.
Well, I mean, I just love that actor. He's one of my favorite actors, and he should get more work.
He is good. You're not wrong. And so it turns out Spook is back in town, and Clubs is annoyed because he left. Spook has turned a bit sassy. I don't know what exactly the word is, but he left a present on Club's doorstep of a wood carving from a carpenter in a different city with a note that says, I just wanted to show you what real carpenters are up to, old man. Spook. Come on, dude. This is not better than old Spook as far as, liking this guy. The attitude and being a jerk to your uncle is not making you more likable.
No, but I feel like if he sasses his uncle too much, his uncle will smack him down and put him in his place.
You're absolutely right. I believe that 100%.
Maybe this is the relationship they've had all along, just no one could understand Spook.
Ooh.
So Spook is just like, I'm still giving you the same level of sass I've always given you, but now Clubs can finally understand it. Turns out he doesn't like it.
That is an interesting thought that had never occurred to me before, that maybe he was always that sassy. Just nobody knew.
I mean, that makes total sense to me, Jaymee, and that's why I don't like him. I mean, even now he's talking normal, and it's just he infuriates me.
He pops up, and it's like, hey, my money's on Vin too. And at first, Ellen doesn't recognize. He's like, who is? Oh my gosh, that's Spook. Wasn't the wear of calling out, he says. Which who the fuck knows what that means? And
that was pretty much my reaction.
Yeah.
It's like, no, here we go again.
Yeah. And it just makes me so angry. It's like he does that, and then he's like, I'm just kidding. I'm going to talk normally now.
Yeah, he says that he only goes back to the dialect for the occasional nostalgic quip.
Smart ass.
But he's been growing. He says that he's over 6 feet tall and 16 years old now. And he's like muscling up. Says that this young man hardly resembles the gangly boy Ellen had met a year before. And I guess Spook is a spy, based on what he's saying. He's like, I'm no Mistborn. We more mundane spies have to find ways of getting information without flying up to windows and listening outside. He calls Clubs Uncle Grumbles,
That was pretty good. I'll pay that.
And then Clubs wants to know where he got a uniform of Clubs' army. And Spook is like, nowhere. It's all good. And apparently, rumors have been cropping back up about the Lord Ruler's Adium having been found in Luthadel. And we established in the last set of chapters that people outside Luthadel thought that they had found the Adium, and that was one of the draws. But apparently, Breeze spent 6 months trying to get everyone to believe that the Adium was not found, so that everyone wouldn't show up at their door trying to kill them to get it. And for me, it's kind of, I don't know which one is better. I understand their perspective of not wanting everyone to think they had Adium so that everyone shows up to try to kill them. But at the same time, Adium is super dangerous. So having everyone think that you have plenty of Adium and they should stay the hell away because you could kill them with this Adium might be better. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think the people spreading those rumors are the ones who have the Atium itself.
Ooh.
I think this is actually Straff Ventures doing. I think he's spreading those rumors because he flogged all the Adium reserves himself and nicked off with it. And as long as people are trying to bust down the door of whoever's got the Adium, he spreads the rumors. Oh yeah, it's in Luthadel, so everyone goes after them, and no one comes looking for him. Meanwhile, he's ideally placed because he has it all and he's ready to use it whenever he needs it.
That would make a lot of sense with the theory that we had about him running off with it last time. The
Yeah.
only thing I can think of against that is that he has now shown up to take over Luthadel, and he's the first one to do so. If he does, then all of those rumors he spread are leading back to him.
Yeah, that's a point, I guess.
Maybe he just needed to keep people distracted until he was ready. I don't know. Interesting. But Ham and Vin have their... It's kind of a cool little scene of their sparring. And she's small and quick and keeps up with Ham surprisingly well. And then just when you think that he's got her, she like jumps 7 feet in the air and takes him. And everyone's like, holy crap, this girl, she's good. We already knew that, though. Vin comes up with some juice and cups for Elend and Clubs. And a flagon for Ham. And Spook's like, what about me? And she says, that beard looks silly on you. So I don't get anything to drink? No. Vin, you're a strange girl.
You're underage.
Oh, she brought juice.
The juice?
Yeah.
I don't know. Could be anything in that.
Okay. She's Irished up their juice this morning. And Ellen has to pay off his bet with Clubs. And he's like, I didn't agree with your bet, Spook. Nobody's here for your nonsense. You paid Uncle Irritable, why not me? And so he just hands over the money. Ellen is not as concerned about this money as Vin is, but then again, Ellen is used to being rich, so.
Yeah.
Vin is like, excuse me, you bet against me? And Ellen says, I didn't mean it, Clubs bullied me.
You still took the bet, mate.
Yeah, he probably should not have done that. Let's be honest. But he's trying to get along with everybody. He's just trying to make everybody like him. It's hard to blame him too much for that. But he's still kind of immature. It's a problem when you're the king, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
And they joke about Vin. And it's like, oh, I'll be careful. She can hit pretty hard. And Spook's like, I got to find myself a woman. And Vin pipes in, that beard isn't going to help. She won't let go of the beard.
Yeah,
it's not even real.
It's hideous.
It's a disguise.
Right. Yeah, it's hideous. It needs to leave his face. He just needs to leave. He needs to get out of here. I'm sick of this guy.
And really, he's not doing Ellen any favors here when he's like, hey, Ellen, why don't you give me a noble title or something? And Ellen's like, that doesn't really help with girls. And he tries to say, well, it worked for you. And Ellen's like, well, Vin likes me despite my title rather than because of it. And Spook wants to bring up the other girls that Ellen's been with, which is not really the kind of conversation you have with his girlfriend right there, generally.
Well, we know Spook had a thing for Vin, so maybe he's like, hey, if I bring up the other girls, Vin will ditch you and come with me. Not with that beard.
Nope, not with that beard, man. I mean, I feel like they turn it into a nice, funny conversation about her killing Shan Alariel,
Killing off her competition. Yeah, no, it's a hilarious conversation, actually, about Shan. And Spook's like, it's more interesting when she kills them off.
Killing people in battle. Hilarious.
But then Ham...
it was like, it was one time.
But Ellen gets his, like, romantic. He's like, I have to admit, Vin is hard on other women. With her around, everyone else looks bland by comparison. It's like, aw. So he's maybe kind of good at that. And Ham takes it a little too far by being like, yes, Lord Ruler only knows what she'll do if you ever try to leave her, Ellen. Ha ha ha. That's not funny to Vin. Even after what they'd been through, even after his marriage, his proposal of marriage, Ellen had to keep promising Vin that he wasn't going to leave her. Yeah. Whoever said at the end of the last book is like, she's not over her, like, fear of abandonment or whatever. Yeah, no, you had it.
Yep.
And so Ellen has to kind of swerve away from that, where it's like, I think I'm going to go visit the kitchens. You want to come, Vin? And Spook's like, I'll come. Once again, read the room, kid. But Clubs helps out.
Over here.
Club's like, you were staying here until you explain exactly where you got one of my soldiers' uniforms. Good save, Clubs. And then they go back, and that evening, the Wolfhound has completed his transformation. And there's kind of a creepy conversation about how he constructed a voice box. Because of all the people he's eaten before, he knows how to create a voice box that fits inside the wolf. And she's like, is that why it took you so much longer? And he's like, no, it was all this fur. I should have told you before. And she's like, no, you mentioned that. Which he did. He said rearranging all that fur would take a while. Which makes sense. That's a lot. You probably don't need to pay as much attention to hair on the human body, except on the head, to make sure it all looks perfect. But on a wolf, that's kind of important. Or a wolfhound. I keep thinking of it as a wolf. He finds the body offensive and degrading.
Again, can't blame him.
Nah. But Ellen's like, well, you'll do it anyway, right? He's like, well, of course. I would die before breaking the contract. It is life.
Ellen's so proud of himself.
Oh, yeah. He's like, see?
Made my point.
He's like, I know what I'm talking about. And that's pretty much the end of this chapter. Is
Vin and her talking dog.
Yeah. Let's see if you can keep up, she says. You think that the Wolfhound will be able to keep up with Mistborn?
Yeah.
Can the dog climb?
Fair question. I've seen some dogs climb.
Sure. Yeah, they'll have their own sitcom, you know. So it'll be like Vin and Orser being best friends together forever. The fun never ends. Solving mysteries one kill at a time. Vin and Orser, two of a kind.
Wow, that was some good improv, dude.
Well, I ripped off the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt for that, but that's fine.
Okay, I've only seen like one episode. I watched the first episode of that and was just kind of like, eh. Okay, we get to Quan's next epigraph here, and he says he is afraid that his story will be forgotten. I'm afraid for the world that is to come, afraid that my plans will fail, afraid of a doom even worse than the deepness. So that's bad.
My mind immediately went to, we haven't even seen the deepness. We don't know what it is. How can there already be something worse than it? We don't even know what that is yet.
We don't need to build up to something worse when we haven't even seen it.
We got this tentacle monster thing that we think is a tentacle monster thing. We don't really know. And now you're telling me there's some like Kraken tentacle monster that's even bigger than that monster?
Bigger tentacles.
Somewhere Qui-Gon Jinn is just like, there's always a bigger fish.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's my mind immediately went to, it's like, hang on, the deepness were the outside scope problem of the first book when the Lord Ruler was the main threat. So now it's like, oh god, there's something else besides the deepness as well. And because it's Quan and I'll always come back to it, yep, trees are coming back and they're going to take over the world.
This is going to be Dax Volcanoes. He's gone into it for this book. It's Quan and the trees. The trees are coming for us.
Trees are the new volcanoes.
And there's a giant Lorax.
The trees were secretly behind the volcanoes. It all makes sense.
That seems counterproductive to them.
You're
it's not
wrong.
in there.
Coming back to the actual passage, something is worse than the deepness, and the Lord Ruler was supposedly stopping the deepness, or he was holding back whatever it was. So presumably the Lord Ruler was the lesser of all the evils. Huh.
Yeah, that seems to be an implication, all right.
Yeah.
Oh.
Unless the flip side is the Lord Ruler was the doom worse than the deepness.
Yeah. That might.
I don't think it's likely, but it's a possibility.
Because he's worried about whatever Elendi's going to do at the Well of Ascension, and so if what Rashek did there turns him into the Lord Ruler, if that's what Quan was worried about was, somebody getting this power and turning into an evil overlord, maybe it makes sense that that's exactly what was worse than the deepness. If, just to be fair to the guy, if we believe what the Lord Ruler was saying for 1,000 years, he defeated the deepness, and then at the end he says that he was still protecting them from something. So maybe we're going to find out that the deepness has been beaten all along, and he wasn't lying about that, but it's whatever that worst thing is that he was protecting them from. The deepness is going to be a red herring, like communism. That was a Clue reference for anyone who...
Man, I haven't seen that movie in ages.
It's a good movie.
Yeah.
They're remaking it, I think I heard.
Oh, of course they are.
Okay, so back to Chapter 7. We're heading back to Sazed. His appreciation of dirt floors, because he can show people how to scribble on the dirt floor. Half the children in this village ran around naked, and he's trying to teach them how to write and read, which they don't really care about. They just come because everyone respects Sazed, Master Terraceman, and if he thinks it's important, well, I guess we'll let the kids tell the kids they need to go and do this. And he's really, he's a little bit down about it, where he's like, he always imagined how wonderful this would be when the keepers came out of hiding and they're teaching everyone, telling stories in front of a warm hearth at night. But nobody really anticipated what the world post-Lord Ruler would be like. So,
yeah, it's sort of a who needs text and reading and writing when you don't have any food.
Yeah, there's a hierarchy of needs here, and we need to address the food thing and the shelter, food, shelter, water, that kind of thing first.
Yep.
No mist, of course. Mist came only during the night. The stories had to be mistakes. And he mentions the synod or synod, and that they've basically decided, what the keepers are supposed to be doing, and sent him off to this area to help out. And at the same, he's wondering about these mysteries that we're running into, and at the same time, he's like, maybe I'm just trying to build more out of this than there is, because all of a sudden I don't have this great, thing to be fighting anymore. I don't have the Lord Ruler as the big scary bad guy to work against. So I'm trying to create something new to keep me interested. Which, I don't know. That doesn't really hang together with me. That's a long way to go to, I feel like Say's probably, he's disappointed, yeah, but I think he enjoys helping these people, so.
He does. He's just not doing what he thought he would be doing to help them.
Mm.
There's so much knowledge that he's collected over his years, and he wants to be able to share all of this in the religions and, restore some things. But they're, like you said before, what does all that mean if you've got no food? He needs to teach these people how to just simply exist, which is not the world he thought he would be living in. He hoping to, enrich people's lives with knowledge and teachings of their ancestors, and that's not what it is at all.
Right. What's the famous psychologist steps for necessity for people? It's like number one is food, shelter, all that stuff.
You're thinking of Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah, that. They gotta have that stuff first before they're ready to learn how to write in languages and history and religions and all that stuff. They gotta be able to survive.
Yep.
It's a pyramid, and at the bottom of the pyramid is physiological needs, just food, water, warmth, and rest. Sorry, psychology. That's
This podcast not sponsored by psychology.
No.
Just in general.
It's I spent a lot of money getting 2 degrees in psychology, so on some level maybe it is. But anyway, we hear Sazed says that all his friends think of him as being so docile, but according to the other keepers, he was like a wild, reckless, untrustworthy fool. So I don't know. Do you ever picture Sazed as like the wild man of his group, who's just like crazy off the wall, doing crazy things?
Well, he did swallow a ring and break into the palace naked.
I don't know that he was naked when he broke in, but yeah, no, okay.
He just runs in, I'm naked!
The Inquisitor's just like, what the fuck? Well, this is new.
It definitely would take everyone by surprise.
No, you're not wrong. Yeah. No, nobody expects the Naked Inquisition. So
Yeah. He's like, they're like, I'm so glad I can only see blue lines.
Somebody shows up and says that the Lord Ruler is back. It is, in fact, not the Lord Ruler, but a Steel Inquisitor, and more specifically, says that it is Marsh.
How do you tell them apart? Like, it took ages before Vin worked out it was Marsh.
Well, Vin wasn't expecting it to be Marsh, and so she was like looking at this guy. It's like, his face does look kind of familiar. Is that Kelsier? No, wait, it's Marsh. So okay. I guess most of his facial features, I guess, are still the same, enough that she recognized him.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the eyes, right, and the hair. So you know, forehead, cheeks, nose, mouth, that's all the same.
It can be difficult for me to recognize somebody after they shave their head sometimes. So adding eye spikes can't help that.
Yeah, for sure.
But once you know what you're looking for, you can probably tell.
Yeah.
You're a difficult person to track, Terraceman. Marsh is talking a little bit oddly in this chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's off-putting and concerning for me. I don't know if everyone else felt the same way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't decide if it was like somebody's actually posing as Marsh or if my theory previously was correct, like when they're turned in, something about being turned into Inquisitor slowly changes you.
Yeah, I'm starting to get that impression.
Mm-hmm.
That would explain all the murderous tendencies they had as a group. They're just wildly stabbing people and stuff like.
Mm-hmm.
How did you manage to pick that many people of the same kind of disposition to do that?
Yeah, he may be trying to hold himself back from wanting to murder.
Yeah, there's something different for sure, and it does seem like maybe there's a good argument there for maybe over time this does some stuff to you, but we'll see, I suppose. He tells Says the conventicle of Saran is empty, and Say says empty. That isn't likely, I think. See, there's the he doesn't want to come out and say no, that doesn't make any sense. He's like, that doesn't seem likely to me, but that's my opinion.
Now that you've said it, we're not going to be able to unnotice that.
Right? I'm sorry. I've ruined all Terracemen forever.
So he'll be like the Big Lebowski guy. It's like, that's just like my opinion, man.
It is. I mean, it's a weird thing for Sace to do, especially in this instance. Marsh is like, I have some information for you. This has happened. And Sace is just like, nah, I don't think so. Like, does he have any reason to distrust Marsh at this point? If Marsh says that this is going on, why would he be like,
And I guess the only explanation we get is Sace thinking to himself that it's a ministry stronghold where the inquisitors can't talk, and high obligators of the Lord Ruler's religion had retreated after the collapse. So it's like the people who didn't want to go along with, Elend or any of the new society, all the Lord Ruler's people retreated to this place. So then saying it's empty now, he's like, wait, what? So all the inquisitors and the high obligators who made this their new center of operations, they just left? That seems unlikely to me. But also, fun note from the annotations, the word conventicle came from his editor, Moshi. He says, I originally called it the Covenant of Saran. However, not only did the Halo games decide to make good use of the word covenant, but my editor found it somewhat inaccurate. So he suggested conventicle, which I liked immediately. It's a real word, though I think I spell it differently, which refers to a meeting of high-level church officials.
Yeah, that works.
Randomly, while I'm in the annotations at this point, I also want to point out he says something interesting about this book being about. They actually, in the editing process, added 15,000 words to make the pacing work, making the pacing quicker through adding stuff. He's like, it's kind of hard to wrap your brain around if you've never had to do it, but it actually makes the pacing quicker and work better in some places by adding an extra scene. And but when it got to the editor or the publisher, the typesetters, they raised a red flag and said that by their count, the hardback for Mistborn 2 was going to be over 700 pages long and unpublishable. And he says, we knew the book was a bit longer, but the first Mistborn book was under 500 pages. So they were now claiming it was about 40% bigger and unpublishable. So his editor went to bat for him and said, it's actually only about 20% bigger, and that doesn't matter. How long it was shouldn't matter because it's the right length. It works well and was paced well, and they the editor said we should not cut it more than this. And so after going back and forth, they came back and said that the book would actually come in at around 560 pages or so, which was very doable. And he ends this annotation by saying, I don't know where those extra 140 pages went. If you find them, let me know.
Yeah. You know, it just makes me think, which, I mean, I guess this book is probably written for, I guess teens could read this, or young adults. But it always just makes me think of like Harry Potter and like the news coming out saying, when the fourth book originally came out, the news coming out saying no child will be able to read a book this long. It's like, what are you talking about?
Mistborn is the Mistborn trilogy is sometimes described as more towards the young adult end of the spectrum of his work. He's done some stuff that's very young adult and some stuff that's even like aimed at elementary age kids, which are some hilarious books, by the way. But this one, I never thought about it being like kind of young adult-ish before when I read it the first time. But later, as people have come back and said that, I'm like, I guess it does center on like a 16-year-old girl, at least at the start, which is kind of a trope of young adult lit. So maybe it makes some sense in there. I don't know. I feel like it works perfectly well as adult fantasy, but I can see why some people would kind of say that. But yes, the Conventicle of Saran, and Say says that isn't likely, I think, and Marsh says it's true nonetheless. So whether or not it's likely, it's true. And Say's just like, hey, there could be a lot of cool information in the library of the Conventicle. Like, that's like the secret headquarters of the ministry. They could have kept all sorts of cool stuff in there. And Marsh says, you must come with me. I may need help should my brethren discover us. And Say's notes, it's like, he's calling them his brethren now? It's kind of weird. In addition to it just being a weird word to use in conversation. And Marsh is just like, get your things, we're going. And Say's just like, okay? No, well, first Marsh has to tell him the mists are coming during the day, and that's what gets his attention, really. This is not over, Say's. It's not yet begun. The Lord Ruler, he was just a delay, a cog, and now that he's gone, we have little time remaining. And that's what convinces Say's to go along. But that's the end of the chapter, more or less, and it's it does not bode well.
Creepy as hell.
Mm-hmm.
That's a word for it.
Something very wrong with Marsh.
He seems to know some things, or at least have an idea about some things, which could be good or bad at this point. But he's like, there's something else coming.
But like, it's not just like the fact that his voice has changed. His entire manner of speaking has changed. Like, he was never this blunt before. Like, even after he'd been turned into an Inquisitor, he still spoke more or less like a normal person, whereas now he's got that cold, like, everything is short, definitive sentences. He doesn't use Say's name until the end of his little introduction, because he starts out by calling him Terraceman.
Yep.
It's just, this seems, everything about him is altered. Yeah, everything is short and clipped and matter of fact. And like, look, I know Marsh wasn't exactly the most personal guy to start with, but he wasn't this cold and remote.
Yeah. What if the Conventicle's empty because he killed them all?
I would find it hard to be upset about that if he took out all the rest of the Steel Inquisitors. But
also, he'd probably lead with that if that were the case.
Maybe, yeah. But no, I mean,
unless he's trying to hide something.
There's clearly something wrong here.
So let's maybe talk about what you think that's going to lead to as we move into predicaments. Anyone have any final thoughts on the chapters before we move into our predicaments section?
Yeah, my final thoughts on these chapters, the hardest part for me about going into the second book is having to remember that the Sanderlanche has stopped and now we're starting again. Because I'm like reading this and I'm like, where's the rest of it? There should be more. Like, I should be getting more information. But I'm having to remember, well, this is a new book. We're not going to get there until near the end. So now it's just like, I've been patiently waiting. It's like, okay, who's this Watcher guy? What's going on with Marsh? Like, what's happening? So, that's what I would say about these chapters. Is like, they're just deepening mystery here, and I want to get things rolling.
Well, I would agree with you that, we're starting again. We still probably, by the time we were getting to this sort of chapters, we're coming into chapter 8, things started happening in the first book. So I have a feeling that in the next few chapters, we are still going to have a few bigger events pop up. Because, I mean, it's kind of his style. We go and think, oh, we're predicting this thing, and then it would happen in the next week. So I feel like things are probably going to start to happen. Like, not so much like what we're used to now from the end of Final Empire, but we will start to have a few bigger things, I think.
Yeah, we could be headed down that same road. Okay, who wants to predict things for our predicments section? Who's up?
Well, I'll go first because I've sort of gone with a couple of others earlier in this episode. But yes, trees will attack. That's the new volcano. But no, like, so earlier in the episode, I was talking about one, I think Strap Venture has the Adium, and he's going to be doing something, like he's going to be hoarding all that. The other thing I mentioned was the fact that I'm certain that Orisua's contract is going to expire, and I actually think those two things are going to be tied together. I think whether or not Straff does have the Adium, I think whoever does have it is going to somehow clue into the fact that they have this kandra working with them so close to Lady Air, and they're going to use the Atium that they've stolen to buy Orisua's contract, because when way back at the start of the first book, Kelsier mentioned that he bought Orisua's contract, so if someone else buys it again, then that could be the catalyst for Orisua turning on them. So I suspect that's probably going to be an issue that crops up at some point. Whoever's got the Adium at the moment, my money's still on Straff, is going to twig to the fact that they have a kandra. Maybe the fact that there's a talking dog will tip their hand. And that's how Orisua is going to turn on them.
Interesting. Okay. That makes sense with Kelsier's talk about buying his contract, right? And at the same time, though, if you can get a contract with one of these and somebody else can just like pay them more to buy the contract out from under you, it would make you think twice about hiring one of these guys, I feel like.
Well, not so much, because like they mention it takes a lot of Atium to buy these contracts. So and the Atium is so rare and parceled out, it's going to make a lot of people think twice before blowing so much Atium on. Like, they're only going to do it if they think it is very, very worthwhile, especially now that Atium is so rare. So whoever's holding the stockpile, if they do this, it's going to be a case of they think it's worth the risk. But it also comes down to we just don't know what the contract entails. Like, they keep harping on about it, but we don't know how it works, what they have to sign, or what the kandra does with the Atium once they've got it. So there's still too many unknown factors there, so I could be completely wrong. But based on the information that we do have, I think this is realistic at this stage.
Okay. So we should worry about Orsur.
Yep.
Finn's already not inclined to rely too much on him. She's kind of suspicious of him as it is, not for those reasons, but
yeah,
should be interesting. Okay. Anything else?
That's all I got.
Okay, who else wants to go?
I had some thoughts that perhaps the Adium is in Luthadel, and this Strath Venture is coming back in to take it. He knows where it is. It's somewhere safe. I know they've done a search, obviously, of Luthadel and tried to find it, but it doesn't mean he didn't hide it. Like, he would have, once the pits of Hastin were destroyed, like, how would he get all of that Adium out so quickly? So I think it's probably still in Luthadel. He's going to come in with a massive army, taking into account that the army in Luthadel is not that strong, and that he would be able to come in, take over, and then he does have it. So there could be a bit of truth to these stories that it is in Luthadel. Maybe it's not Straff that's actually spreading that rumour, but I mean, if no one can find it outside Luthadel, makes sense it would still be there. So I think that's where I'm heading with that one. And I don't really know how yet, but I think who we're seeing as Marsh is probably not Marsh. And it's a big old trap for Sazed.
Ooh, that would be bad. He's far away from all his friends and no one knows where he is. So if it's a trap, no one is going to be showing up to save him from it.
Yeah. So I'm not quite sure how that will unfold yet, but that's my gut feel anyway.
I can see why you'd think that, yeah. Makes sense. Joe, what do you got? What are you going to predict?
So, yeah, I like Jaymee and Dak's predictions, both of them. All the predictions that they've made. I'm kind of agreeing with Jaymee that maybe it's not Marsh, and this kind of wild idea sprung to my mind. So Sazed is a terraceman. he's a little unhappy with the way things are going with him trying to teach these villagers things. You know, he's being genteel about it. Obviously, he knows that there are other things that are more important to these people right now than the lessons that he's trying to teach them. But at the same time, I feel like he wants to be able to teach them. He wants to go deeper. He wants to be able to give us knowledge. So this ties in kind of with my Sazed turns out to be evil plot.
Ooh.
I'm almost wondering if this guy Marsh, if it is Marsh or whether it's not Marsh, is taking Sazed to the conventicle. The plot I don't know exactly how all the ins and outs of this would work, but the plot that's forming in my mind is, what if they are trying to give Sazed allomancy to make him into a new Lord Ruler? That's kind of where my brain's going with that right now. I don't know exactly how that would play out or work, whether they would try to control him or whether the powers combined would somehow turn him evil. Like maybe if the power to become an Inquisitor slowly like warps your mind, maybe whatever they do to him would warp his mind, and they're trying to create, because he's taking Sazed to the place where all the leftover Inquisitors and Obligators are. So if they had any knowledge of the true nature of Lord Ruler, perhaps they're trying to create another one. I don't know. That's kind of where my mind's going on that. I'm interested to see how this Watcher person plays in to this whole thing. And also, I don't remember does Vin ever talk to Orsur about the Watcher? Because I almost feel like Orsur...
I don't think we've seen that, no.
Okay, so maybe he doesn't know, but it almost seems like Orsur is ignoring the Watcher. But if they haven't talked about the Watcher, maybe that's not the case. But I feel like there's something going on. I mean, obviously there's something going on with the Watcher. I'm trying to predict how he's going to play into this. It's got to be, I can't figure out if it's somebody we know or if it's going to be a new person we don't know. And then now it's like I'm looking for every new character that pops up in the book to say, okay, that's who that is. But we really haven't had any prominently new characters in the book so far. So
it's normal talking Spook. He's secretly a Mistborn.
Yeah,
now.
he's secret. Yeah, he's somehow Mistborn. Yeah, you got it. You that's it. No, I hope Spook dies. That would be great. That's my prediction. I hope he...
Plot twist. Spook is the Watcher.
Yeah. No, definitely not. Definitely not. I hope he dies gurgling on his blood, having never felt the touch of a woman. I think that would be fitting. Anyway, that's how I'm kind of feeling with predictions. I know that's not super concise, but that's just where my brain's going.
You're good. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, we didn't really get much mention of the Watcher in these chapters, so, or any maybe. I'm not remembering any. So
yeah, I don't think so.
Whoever that is has kind of dropped off the radar for these 3 chapters, but we'll see what happens in the next set. We're actually reading 4 again for next week, but we'll get there here in a minute. We have 4 emails this week. We were very popular.
Ooh.
So let me start going through those. We're just gonna take a minute here. First one is from Angela, who we've heard from several times before. We love Angela. She's awesome. She says, hello, congrats on finishing book 1. My favorite prediction, and the one that prompted me to email about having favorite predicaments section in the first place, was not technically a prediction, though it was said in the predicaments section of the show. So we did encourage them after we did the predicaments retrospective to, if we missed one, email, let us know what your favorite was that we missed. And so that's what Angela is doing here. She says, it was from episode 10 during Data and Joe's conversation about Kelsier's character development and whether the ending of the book would give Joe enough for him to be happy, in quotes. Joe's response was that he likes Christ-like victories over evil. I think Joe probably meant that he likes for irrefutably good to defeat the irrefutably bad, but I realized that he had inadvertently predicted Kelsier's legacy.
Sure.
Yeah, Kelsier, he died for the people and became revered and a religious figure afterwards.
Yeah.
Sacrificed himself nobly. It is a little bit, there's a little bit of Jesus happening in there.
Yeah, except for the whole, now Vin's the heir. It totally fits.
Yeah. Jesus had 12 people who were, carrying on his legacy.
But they also weren't like the heirs.
Nah, maybe if there had just been one, people would have felt that way.
Well, thank you for your email. Appreciate that.
Yeah, she goes on a little bit, but I'm not gonna hit all of this because.
Spoiler.
Well, not exactly. So she says, I don't think it's any secret the Kelsier story is an allegory of Jesus' story. Kelsier leads a ragtag group of disciples to confront evils of the world by building a group of believers who are so invested that when he dies in a public display, they believe it when people testify that he's returned from the dead. That's true. I kind of left that off when we were talking about the comparisons to Jesus, but there's stories about him returning from the dead and people seeing him. We know that it was a bone-eating blob, but,
Yeah. There's a lot of literary. Anytime you have a hero, it's like, let's make him like Jesus.
Yeah, you're not totally off there. But she says, I love that Joe's offhanded comment about his hopes for the end of Kelsier's story were so accidentally on the nose. Thanks for continuing to provide great content. I really enjoy what you all do. Have a wonderful day. Thank you, Angela. I'm right there with you. I think, and I think she may have emailed, or somebody did right after that, and that it may have been part of her email where she suggested we do a most accurate predictions. But she was like, "Oh my gosh, he said that thing about Jesus, and just wait till he gets to the end and how it turns out." And I was like, "I know, right?" And then I completely forgot to mention it when we went over the prediction segment. So I think that's why she was like, "You forgot to do this," and it was like a big obvious thing. So yeah, thank you for reminding me, Angela. Okay, next we got one from Jordan who says, sent right after listening to the 11th Metal. I've been digging the podcast so far and love hearing everyone's opinions on characters and predicaments. Like Data, I read through the books at lightning speed, so I didn't form any predictions either. Can't wait for the rest of the series. It says, one thing I've noticed from other podcasts that cover books is at the end of the book, they have an episode dedicated to what they think of the book as a whole, how it worked holistically, themes, blah, blah, blah. Might be worth considering, as the podcast seemed to jump from the end of the book to seeing what the most accurate predictions were and then into the next story. So I thought that in our last episode, we kind of touched on that a lot, on like what we thought of the book as a whole at that point. And then I kind of expected we'd do that a little more as when we went into the most accurate predictions. And I don't know if we actually did. So that might be something we should consider for next time, is an extra episode just to look back on the book as a whole. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, I like that people want to hear more about what we thought about the book, but I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I said everything I needed to say. Without knowing more of the story, I feel like everything I wanted to say about Final Empire I've said.
So maybe you feel the same way, Dak?
Yeah, yes. Well, we've spent weeks and weeks and weeks picking apart that book bit by bit. So, I mean, I could see the advantage in having sort of a retrospective of the book as a whole and seeing how different bits fed into the end game and everything else. But it really does feel like we spent so long talking about the book, like we said most of what we could have said. And I think there's merit to the idea, but I do think a lot of the episode might just be us winding up repeating ourselves about a lot of things.
Yeah, maybe it would be a better idea to do something like that after we've read the trilogy.
That's what I was about to say. That might be an idea for, like, after we read the trilogy, come back, and at that point I could point out, go back and be like, yeah, so this was back all the way in book 1 that predicts the very end of book 3, and point out stuff that might not come up organically as we're reading through, and we could review or talk about it as a whole. That might be a good idea. Let's we'll keep that in mind for the end of the trilogy, and maybe if we keep doing most accurate predictions at the end of each book, maybe look at talking a little more about that in that episode also.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Sounds good.
He says, I wish, or she, Jordan could be a she. I keep doing that. I wish you all the best and can't wait for next Monday to listen to the next journey. Thank you, Jordan. We appreciate that. And your idea. We are going to keep that in mind. Maybe not exactly the way you describe it, but we'll see. We got another email from Retro Rocket, who we've heard from before. He says, I continue to enjoy watching you guys' podcasts. As Joe would point out, can't watch it. It's a listening to. He does that to me every time. So
I just want them to understand that there's no extra medium out there yet. I don't want them to go searching on YouTube for our podcast. It's not there.
There's one episode of our podcast on YouTube.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the one.
And all it is a picture of the symbol for that episode that's on Podbean, and it's just that picture the whole time with the audio behind it.
That's right, because there were some people who had trouble downloading it. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So he says, now that you're actually into the second book, and this might have come up in your first episode of book 2, but how do you think Sanderson does in his reminders of what happened in the first book and the world they inhabit? We did talk about that a little bit, about how we felt he kind of re-explained some stuff, but not like ad nauseum like some authors do. He says, also a few quotes that I have questions for you guys. So he quotes Orsor saying, "You probably didn't expect me to feel pain either." Vin opened her mouth and then paused. Actually, she'd never thought about that. Then she hardened herself. What right does this thing have to chastise me? So he says, what do you think of Vin's dehumanizing reference to the kandra as a thing? And do you think that the kandra's side in this, his loyalty is enough, and that his antagonism is justified by how Vin treats her? I assume that should be how Vin treats him. Or do you take Vin's side, that he pushes the contract as evidence of his good intentions, but not sure when this is going to be read, so trying to minimize spoilers? I guess he's almost antagonistically passive-aggressive in his assertions. So I guess the question is, what do you guys feel about this? We talked about that last time too. She does refer to him as a thing. Whose side do you take in this? Do you think that the kandra is justified in how he feels about Vin, or that Vin is more justified in how she treats Orsor?
I think Vin's reasons for having a bit of a problem with him are sympathetic, but the lengths that she is going to against him are not.
Makes sense. That they both have kind of a...
Yeah, she's clearly disgusted by him because of, even though Kelsier told him to do it, because of what he did to Kelsier's body. I think she just has such a sense of violation about him in general that she's not really willing to open herself up at all to the idea that he really is there to assist her and help her. This creature is obviously a creature of contract. My guess is that no kandra is particularly pleased to be dealing with a master. They do it because they want the adium for whatever reason, not because they actually care for the person that they're involved with. So I think she's expecting too much from him, and he's not expecting too much from her, but because of her attitude, she's not going to get. So I don't take either one of their sides, but at the same time, they obviously have, they each have expectations of each other's that are not being met.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about you, Jaymee? Whose side are you on?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's really a side to be on. I mean, I've sort of thought of it from a point of view where Vin's grown up as a Scar, where they are somewhat treated like things as well. So, I mean, what she, referred to as creatures and don't really have a place. So I can kind of see where she gets that attitude from, and that she thinks it's okay. I also completely understand that she's so disgusted by the events that unfolded involving Orsor. But, I mean, she's in a situation she doesn't want to be in. Orsor's in a situation he didn't want to be in, but he's got a contract. So, they're just going to have to stick it out and see. I don't think necessarily either of them are right. They're both making it fairly difficult for each other. No one's going to be the bigger person and come, you know what? We're stuck here. Let's try and make the most of it. Or, this is how I can help you. Making him become a dog is probably not the greatest thing for building friendship there. So, yeah, it's sort of like you can understand both sides, but neither of them are right, I think, in this situation.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, but hey, to tie it to Final Fantasy, we got like a Red 13 thing going on.
We have
right?
a Red 13, yeah. I knew that was going to come up at some point. We totally do.
But thanks, Retro Rocket, for being a friend of the podcast for as long as you have and sending us that email. It's awesome.
He has a couple more quotes in here that we've already in the last episode we talked about, because obviously the last episode that we recorded hasn't come out yet, so he doesn't know that we talked about these things at length. But there's one that we kind of hadn't touched on that I was going to also read here. He says, the quote is, "She studied the dark mists, glancing upward just to be certain. This is the first time my bronze has been wrong," she thought with a frown. That's when she was detecting the mist spirit out in the mist and couldn't find him, or it. So Retro Rocket says, "That really surprised me because I'd always envisioned the mists as white, like a typical fog. But then this references the mist spirit being dark, and I was left wondering how he could blend in with the mists. I think this might be the first reference to the color of the mist themselves, and I kind of wondered what you guys pictured the mist as being like."
I'd always pictured it as white now about it. But I guess like a darker color would sort of make sense. You think everything's ash stained and all that sort of stuff. So having it quite a dark color would make sense.
I think in my mind it's it does look like fog, but it always comes out at night, so it would be dark. Like everything would be dark at night, I guess. And it's thick enough that it blocks out, the light from the sun or not the sun, the stars, or if there's a moon. We haven't really heard about it, I don't think. So I don't know. I guess I thought it was fog, but it was just fog in so much darkness that it looked very, very dark. I don't know.
Well, I guess if you can't see through it, it blacks out everything else. So
yeah, darkness
is all that's left.
But obviously they can see the mist distinctly, separate from everything around it, so it's not like pitch black. So I don't know. That's an interesting food for thought, I guess. I don't know. Dak, Joe, do you guys have any thoughts about how you picture the mists?
I always just thought it was like sort of a murky gray sort of color, and I guess this doesn't really exclude that. So
yeah, the thought in my mind was always dark cloud, because I mean, when you think about it, the reason you can see fog as white is because of light, I would assume. And if it's dark when it comes out, then you're only going to see kind of a darker cloud of vapor or whatever it is.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. As much as we can make sense of it. Last email that we received. Thank you, Retro Rocket. I did leave a couple of years out, but that was because we discussed them at length last time. So our fourth email is from Jason. And Jason says, "Hey, I can't wait for you guys to start the Well of Ascension now. I've loved everything so far. Thank you for introducing me to Miracle of Sound, by the way. The Well of Ascension has the best starting line of any Sanderson book, in my opinion. I write these words in steel, for anything not said in metal cannot be trusted. Besides maybe The Way of Kings, which does have a good starting line. It's true. Well, depending on whether you consider the first line of The Way of Kings to be the beginning of the preface, or the beginning of the prologue, or the beginning of chapter 1. Anyway.
That'll make sense to us when we get to that book.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm already asleep. Let's go. No, I'm just kidding.
So what Jason says is the epigraphs in the first Mistborn book were from a piece of writing found by the characters during the story. So do you guys have any theories about the epigraphs of this one? Is it another? I mean, he says he's writing the words down, so presumably it's a piece of writing also. But if it is, are they going to find it? Where will they find it? That sort of thing.
Well, maybe they'll find it at the conventicle of whatever.
Saran.
Yeah,
Sayes was talking about how he was like, I gotta get into them libraries there. They gotta have some good stuff in them.
Yeah. Maybe there's like a giant. Book. Yeah. I mean, when he's saying he's slamming it into metal, I almost wonder, it's like, did he make a giant wall, like a mural with all this writing on it? Kind of made me think of like
from Skyrim.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. It almost makes me think of the word walls, the dragon walls in Skyrim. It's like this just big wall with runes and stuff in it.
Nice.
And presumably wherever he was when he started writing these two was, I guess, fairly close to where he abandoned Alendi. So probably up in Terrace somewhere. Maybe on their journey to the Well of Ascension they'll come across it. Because I feel if it's metal as well, moving that around, depending on how long it is.
Yeah, could be.
Would be difficult.
Of course, by this time, for all we know, he may have been off in hiding, scared that Alendi was going to kill him when he got back from the well. We don't know exactly when he betrayed him, actually. That's an interesting point. Like, you talked about it like he's on the way to the well, and that's when Quan turned on him. But I guess we don't know that. It could have been.
We also don't know how long that journey took. So, like, if Quan betrayed him, and then 3 years later, that's when Rashek ascended or something. Like, it's a long time.
Okay, so we got a couple theories. If it really was a big mural or something, then probably he couldn't move it afterwards. So wherever he happened to be writing it is where they're gonna find it. Okay, that was all our emails. Thank you, listeners. If you want to send us emails, it's the Sanderlanche@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, and also all those sorts of places to communicate with us if you like. For next week, we are reading 4 chapters again. It's chapters 8, 9, 10, and 11. Chapter 9 is actually the shortest chapter we've ever read so far. So it's very, very short.
It's actually one word.
There's a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy chapter. There's like one sentence or something. So read those 4, 8, 9, 10, 11 for next week. And thanks for listening, everyone. We will see you then. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
And we try to keep a little beauty in the world. tell it to the page. Ooh, we never let it fade.
Stopping the recording.
Did
If
you
I can
say
find
music
this-
by Miracle of Sound? Did you say that?
Oh, I didn't.